Welcome to another edition of ChooseWell 2024. Today our special guest is the Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Welcome to the Family Leader.
Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. Along with our pillar partners, we have the Heritage Foundation, we have First Liberty, we have the Family Policy Alliance, and Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life that joins us in the ChooseWell 2024 initiative because we believe that we are better together. And there is a little studio audience here that's made up of team members, board members, some donors, I don't know if some of these people got in, but why don't you welcome Governor Ron DeSantis to the Family Leader. As you know, Darla and I, we like to, February at least, we like to go to Florida, Marco Island. We think it's just one of those great places. And we hear a lot of positives about you being the governor of Florida and all the great accomplishments. With such a key state like Florida and being governor of Florida, what in the world makes you say, I want to run for president of the United States?
Well, some would say it can be a lapse in judgment when people make that plunge. But I think for us, as much as we're happy about what we have done in Florida, the country is in a state of decline. I think if you look economically, culturally, militarily, we're losing ground every day. There's a lot of people that think that you just have to kind of accept that as the new normal. Maybe managed decline is the best that we can do. I reject that. I think we need to reverse the country's decline. I think we need an American revival and a new birth of freedom. And for whatever reason, God put me in the position of being the governor of Florida during a time when things went haywire in our country during COVID and so many other ways. And I've been somebody that has stood up and led through crisis, standing up to the left, winning big battle after big battle, and then delivering big political success as a result. So our model in Florida is really a model that could help rejuvenate this country. And I felt that I was positioned to be the guy that could get it done.
When Darla and I went and we had lunch with you and Casey at Tallahassee, very impressed with Casey. And you as well, but sorry, a bad pause, right? But if I recall right, Casey was well behind this as well, saying the country needs you right now. Give us a little insight into Casey and what she was seeing at this point as well, and why you're the right one at this time.
Well, it's not the case in politics that kind of the elected official's spouse is always seeing eye to eye with them on some of this stuff. But she is a true believer. I mean, she believes in everything that we're doing. She's very strong in her convictions. And so she's really appreciated what we've been able to do in Florida. And she remembers, and she'll tell the stories about some of those dark days in COVID when I was getting hammered, like, oh, he's not closing this, he's not putting masks on people, all this stuff. And I think she'll say, like, that was one time where even she started to doubt me a little bit just because I had the weight of the world coming down. But I just dug in and kept going, and she's like, you know what? That's what's leadership. That's what we need in this country. So she believes, like, and she'll say, if I wasn't married to him, I would be wanting him to run for president just as a citizen. So I think it comes from a place where she authentically believes this country needs a change. She cares a lot about the future. We have 6, 5, and 3-year-olds at home. We're in jeopardy right now of being the first generation of Americans to leave to our kids and grandkids in America less prosperous and less free than what we inherited. And that would be breaking faith with every generation of Americans all the way up to the present. And that doesn't sit well with her. And if we have a chance to do something about it, we have an obligation to step up and serve.
Well, I really appreciated about you when you led during COVID as governor of Florida, much as I appreciated about Governor Reynolds as she led here in Iowa during COVID.
Sure.
You both kept the schools open. But at one time, I remember a press conference, Governor Reynolds and I like to ride bike. She was asked to shut down the bike trails. And I said, oh my goodness, dude, I saw bikers wearing masks and like, I don't know what this, but anyhow, don't close down the bike. But for you, you kept the schools open and you also kept the beaches open. Oh, yeah. I was like, he can't close the beach. Because it's telling you to close down the beaches, right?
Well, that was the first panic of COVID was, why are people on the beaches in Florida? The governor needs to close them. I'm like, no. I was like, first of all, where are they going to go? These are like tourists and stuff. You going to put them inside? I mean, so they were fine out there. But yeah, it was just some of the hysteria that happened during that time. It was easier for an elected official to just say, you know what? Dr. Fauci's telling me I have to do this, so I have to do it. But that's not leadership. You were elected. The buck stops with you. You consult with people, and I did. But when I realized Fauci was selling people a bill of goods, I got other experts who the media would not talk to, but who were right on all this. And we talked to people and made sure. And if you look at the schools, I probably got pilloried more on the schools than anything. Kim, I know here, got pilloried by it. But that decision probably had more beneficial impact on the future of both of our states, because if you would have locked them out for 6 months, 9 months, a year, like some other states did, that would have had years and years of impact. And it would have education deficit, cultural problems, crime, it would have built going there. So we had to take a stand on that. But that's the thing, if you're willing, leadership's all about being willing to do what's right when it's not easy. If the wind's at your back, then anyone can do that. Are you going to be willing to dig in, and are you going to be willing to push back when it counts?
And we really appreciate that type of leadership, especially the leadership that treats adults like adults. Make the best informed decision that you can. Part of leadership when you're president, and our partner, pillar partner, First Liberty, is very interested in this as well, is we're seeing a lot of stuff get passed through the courts that should not be getting passed through the courts. One of the most important jobs is who you're going to appoint as justices. When you get to be president, if God so wills it that you're president, how will you go about saying, these are the justices I'm going to appoint to the bench?
Well, first, I have a great track record in Florida. When I became governor, we had a 4-3 liberal majority on our Supreme Court, and it was probably the most liberal court in the country. I was able to replace 3 liberals my first week in office, and we ended up creating a 6-1 conservative court, probably the most conservative court in the country now because of those selections. So we've made a number over the years. So I've proven track record of being able to put good constitutionalists on the bench. You look at the next president, a 2-term president is going to replace Alito and Thomas, most likely. Maybe Roberts, and maybe even someone like a Sotomayor. Now, Sotomayor is very left-wing. You're probably going to do a lot better than that without even thinking. Roberts, very wishy-washy. You, of course, can do much better there. But Thomas and Alito are the gold standard. So you've got to be willing, you've got to appoint people that are going to be in those similar vein, because if you replace a Thomas with like a Roberts, that's going to move the court to the left. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is fortifying the conservative majority on the Supreme Court. If you are called upon to replace the 2 legends, you got to get people that are going to walk in those footsteps and carry on their legacy.
Well said. And another pillar partner of ours, and this is going to be a big issue, you saw it in the debate the other night, but you're seeing it all across the country, SBA pro-life, the whole sanctity of human life. I tell people we need a messenger on that issue. Not that responds to the polls, that shapes the polls. We need a champion for the culture of the sanctity of human life. But you're going to have some states like Newsom and others that are just runaway governors. I mean, it's going to be abortion on demand up till the time of birth. Taxpayers pay for it. You don't need parental notification. Is there a do you believe there's a federal role at all when it comes to the sanctity of human life issue?
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, I think some of those practices are very barbaric. They probably would have been unthinkable in this country even 15, 20 years ago. But this has become something that the left has really viewed as their hobby horse. It used to be that even people that may not have supported pro-life protection still wanted abortion to be rare, and they wanted to reduce it, and they viewed it as a bad thing. The modern left, some of these people are embracing it as a positive good. That is not a positive good. I mean, I told the story in the debate the other day about a single mother in Jamaica who was told to have an abortion, poor, the daughter wasn't going to have opportunities. For whatever reason, she got to that clinic, something came over her, God told her no, had the baby. The girl ended up working in Jamaica, then she came to the United States, went to law school, and I recently appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court. So people would have said that that girl had no chance.
That deserves an applause, by the way.
But people would have said, oh, she doesn't have a chance, you know, you're poor, single mother, all this other stuff. And I think what I try to tell people is we're better off when everybody counts, when everybody has a chance. And part of that is, of course, being pro-life, but part of it is ensuring that mothers have what they need to be able to give their kids opportunity. You know, sometimes we talk a lot about being pro-life in the womb, and then once after that, we kind of forget. We promote fatherhood in Florida. We launched a big fatherhood initiative. I understand the financial constraints that a lot of people are on. That drives decisions when you have inflation, because women don't think they can afford. we made all baby items permanently tax-free in Florida. So baby food, wipes, diapers, crib strollers, all that. We want people to be able to raise families in our state, and we want that throughout the country.
And your pro-life bona fides also go to, you're a governor that signed the heartbeat bill. And our governor did the same thing. You saw her do it at our leadership summit. And I remember about Kim Reynolds when she signed the heartbeat bill at our leadership summit. She asked the media, she said, you all say that Democrats aren't for abortion up on demand until the time of birth. She said, ask them. Ask them where the line is, and they won't tell you where the line is. And I think we need to have more of that. So thank you for being a champion for the sanctity of human life. Another issue that you've taken on is, obviously we look at government all the time, especially with presidential politics. But more and more, big corporations, big business, they're forcing a way of life on us that, and they're using our money to do it. And Heritage Foundation has done a lot of research on this. What can the president do when it comes to these ESGs, these DIIs, using our money for investment, where the number one goal is no longer to make profit, but it's to drive social policy? Is there any leadership that the president can do on those issues?
Absolutely. We've done it in Florida. You have kind of an old strand of republicanism which says your job is basically to cut taxes and let corporations do whatever they want. And I don't know if that was ever something that worked in the past, but I do think if you go back to the 50s, the head of General Motors would say what's good for America is good for General Motors. I think the corporations were patriotic. I think they believed in the American way of life. Well, now, if you take that posture that we should not care what any of these corporations do, they are trying to change society. They are trying to change culture. They are trying to change policy through business decisions that the electorate doesn't have any say over. And we're supposed to be self-governing people through a constitutional process. So things like ESG really represent an end run around that. If you can have an asset manager like BlackRock use its considerable financial resources to force changes on society, then we're basically being governed without our consent. So in Florida, we kneecapped ESG in our pension, not allowed to use ESG for, this is like teacher money, cops, retired people. Their money is being manipulated to drive an agenda they disagree with. We took $2 billion that BlackRock was managing and took it away from them. We banned social credit scores because ultimately I think the vision is it's a politicized economy where your right to participate is going to be contingent on you bending the knee to whatever the hobby horse is of the elite class. And that's not going to be things that are going to be good for conservatives in any way, shape, or form. So your freedoms, your way of life, our culture is impacted when these companies do this. And so, example, with the Disney fight that we had.
You guys heard of Disney? Okay.
We had this, I mean, it's crazy that this is going on in this country, but they have teaching kindergarten first graders that their gender is a choice. Having a teacher tell a young girl that she was born in the wrong body. It's totally unacceptable, but yet that's what the left is trying to do. So in Florida, we said, you know what, we're not going to allow that. We're going to pass parents' rights legislation to say we're not going to have sexualized curriculum in our school, but particularly in the elementary school. Left didn't like it, the media didn't like it, but Disney, which is the most powerful corporation in the history of Florida, they came out whole hog against it. A lot of these old guard Republicans were telling me that somehow Disney, when they call the shots, you just got to bend the knee. And I said, no way. I am not going to just sit idly by and let people corrupt the innocence of our kids. If we can't stand up for our kids in those situations, then we're not good for anything. So we fought back against Disney. We had a big battle with them, and we won the battle against Disney. And you know what? It was not only important for Florida and to get that policy right. And look, some of this, I like to think I would take these positions no matter what, but we have 6'5" and a 3-year-old at home. My wife and I are raising, and I look at like my 6-year-old daughter, and I'm like, how could you possibly want to inject things like gender ideology? I mean, it really is outrageous. And so I'm very sensitive about it, but I'll tell you, the fact that we were willing to stand up to them, that had reverberations across this country. Because I think you do have some CEOs that they're not necessarily bought into this agenda, but it's the path of least resistance. Because the media will attack them if they don't do the agenda. Some of these activist employees will attack them. And so they just say, you know what, bend the knee and move on. Now they can say, well, gee, I don't want to end up like Disney. People may fight back from the right now. So I think we helped kind of refocus business in America in a better way. I think it was going off the rails. I think there's still a lot of problems, don't get me wrong. But we had the most significant action that's ever been taken against a woke corporation, and we were right to do it, and my state is better off because we did it.
And one of the big things that you did from your leadership is you really took the opportunity to shine the light on what was happening, and then to expose it, and then hold them accountable. And understand these are business decisions at the end of the day, and government's got a role in that. We have a role in that as well. You already hit on it a little bit, but I want you to go a little bit further. Is our other pillar partner, Family Policy Alliance? They say, and the middle name we have is family, and the nuclear family we believe is the best local unit of government. If that's right, a lot of other things become right. Our board chair mentioned that as well. Parental rights seem to be threatened all over the place today. I can get abortion without parental rights. I can start transitioning without parental rights. I need to be silenced about it type thing. And then you have the whole boys get to participate in girls sports. All as leader, part of it's a messenger again, but also practicality. What can we do to put an end to some of this nonsense?
Well, I do think legislatively you do need to act. I know Iowa's done stuff. Florida, we did a parental bill of rights. We protected women's sports. We provided curriculum transparency for the parents. So when they're going into school, they know what's being taught. You should have a right to know what's being taught in your kid's school. Parents have blown the whistle in Florida when pornographic materials have been found, and the media will say that we're somehow, quote, banning books. It's not banning books. If you walked into a kindergarten classroom and someone was playing an X-rated movie, you would take the movie out. That doesn't mean it's banned from society. It just means it's not appropriate for that. So that is a farce what they're trying to do. But I called their bluff on this. We did a press conference probably about 6-9 months ago saying exposing the book ban hoax. And before I even said anything, before I had the parents speak, I just played 2-minute video of what the parents had objected to. The local news covering our press conference cut their live feeds immediately. They said it was too graphic to air on TV. And I'm just saying to myself, well, wait a minute. It's too graphic to air on the 6 o'clock news, but somehow it's okay in a 4th grader's classroom. Let's get real here. Stop trying to jam adult material into kids' classrooms. That's an agenda. And kind of the guiding light for us in education has been education, not indoctrination. We need to stop with the indoctrination in the schools. I didn't have it when I was growing up, and I don't think we should have it going forward. I think Florida's done more to push back on that. But ultimately, the parent is in the driver's seat. When anyone that says they don't want the parents involved in education, the only reason you wouldn't want the parents involved is because a parent is an obstacle to you imposing your agenda on their kids. Yeah. Because if a parent's involved in a student's academic progress, the student's going to do better. The teachers will tell you it's harder to reach students who don't have parental involvement at home. So that's what the left is really trying to do. And it raises a larger issue because I think, the assault on the family, the assault on religious liberty, all this, the left basically wants to have every institution bow down to its ideological agenda. So if you're a parent, yeah, you can make decisions about whether you should go get your kids dinner in the McDonald's drive-thru after a soccer game or something like that. But if you want to make, more fundamental decisions to say, no, you're not going to be, get a surgery to change your gender, that somehow, like in California, they think you can lose custody of your kid. If you don't indulge in some of the gender ideology, they say you're somehow not a fit parent. So you can see what they're trying to do. They want your rights as parents to bow down to the left's ideological agenda, and the same way they want people of faith to bow down to the left's ideological agenda. They think it's okay to go to church for that one hour a week on the Sunday, but they don't want you bringing that in to any other institution. If there's ever a conflict between your faith and the left's agenda, they expect you to bend the knee. That's not religious liberty as our founders understood it, and that's a battle that we have to win.
Amen. Amen. So in summary, just on this, for us, we believe it's the parent's right to raise and nurture the child, not the government's right. And at the end of the day, when they start talking about we want government all the time, that's because they want government to be their God and not God to be God. And that's why they want us to bow down to their way of thinking. It's a one-way street, not a two-way street. Turn the page a little bit, Israel. Obviously, it's very important to us as people of faith. We believe that for those who bless Israel, God will bless. For those who curse, God will curse. I know you're a strong ally with Israel. And by the way, on celebrating Veterans Day, thank you for your service to our country
absolutely.
as well. What should the leadership of America be with the nation of Israel? And what is the end goal right now with this conflict at the Gaza Strip?
Well, what they suffered was the most wide-scale massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. If you had take how small Israel is and extrapolate that to the United States, a similar attack here would have been like 20 9/11s. So this is an existential threat to their existence. Hamas would kill every Jew that they can. They don't think Israel has a right to exist. They want to wipe Israel off the map. So we have to say as Americans, and I would as president, we're going to stand with Israel in public and private. We're going to make sure in word and deed that we support their right to defend themselves and to eliminate the problem of Hamas once and for all. Yes, I support our military relationship, providing them Iron Dome, whatever they want. But the most important thing that they're asking for us is unequivocal support in both public and private. I think what Biden is doing is he's saying some things publicly, then he's undercutting privately, and even some of the stuff that his administration says publicly. We need moral clarity right now. There is no moral equivalence between Israel defending itself from having its people massacred and a Hamas terrorist who would kill a baby, an elderly, take people hostage. They have no morals at all. Israel, and it shows you the difference. What Israel has done to be able to save people, it's a culture that values life, whereas Hamas, they glorify death.
You talked early on about you think that America is in need of a revival. Ronald Reagan said that back in 1979. He said, I believe this country hungers and thirsts for a spiritual revival. Obviously, we at the Family Leader, our mission is to inspire the church, to engage government for the advancement of God's kingdom and the strengthening of family. What role do you see the church having in shaping this culture and taking a stand against what we see is the forces of darkness and being that light?
Well, if you go back to Alexis de Tocqueville when he wrote Democracy in America, one of the things he thought was unique about America is you had all these important institutions that really gave life to American freedom. So yes, the government, whatever role it played, but then you had this, and chief among them were the churches. You go back to the American Revolution and the role that the churches played in us getting independence. So I think it's vital. I think there was not an accident that so many people on the left sought to close churches during COVID. I think that they did not want people going in. I mean, how do you say a church should be closed, but a strip club can be open? In Florida, I did an executive order saying churches are open, people can go. So I think the left views that as an impediment to their agenda. And I just think that our country's kind of on the mat, similar to like it was in the late 70s. I think the spirit has been beaten down. I think there's a lot of pessimism. And yes, having a leader come up and talk about the political vision is important, and Reagan did that. But that's not enough. I mean, you really do need, spiritual revival. You need people to understand that, you know what, there's a higher power here. And it's not just about our day-to-day. We're here. Our freedoms ultimately come from God.
I'm glad you brought up to Tocqueville, because his big deal was, it was America's pulpits being inflamed with the truth of God's word. That was its uniqueness. That was its mystique, basically, which gave us what we have today as America. And we tell churches all the time, we don't need you to be political. We don't need you to be Republican or Democrat or put a DeSantis sign. Maybe you'd want that, a DeSantis sign in your yard. We just need you to be biblical, and we need you to be culturally relevant. And if they do that, we think a lot of good things will take care of themselves.
Well, we need to have society rooted in truth. And part of the reason I don't like some of the nonsense the left's doing, I mean, if you're telling me that a man can get pregnant, that is not true, okay? And we can't have society rooted in things that are false. And so the truth will set us free. And I think ultimately it's the faith that's rooted in the ultimate truth.
I think that was God calling right now. That the truth will set you free is right on cue, okay? Last question. You've been traveling Iowa a lot, New Hampshire a lot, the country. You've been on talk shows. You've been all over the place. For those of us who are going to be making a decision, what should America be looking for in their next president? What does America need? What should we be looking for in the next president?
I think we need somebody who understands that the role of the president is to be a leader, but it's ultimately not about me. It's about you. It's about the country's future. So I'll be someone that'll fight for the people of this country. I'll be somebody that will win for Americans and their families, and I'll be somebody that will lead this revival. But it's not because of my issues. I'm not trying to solve any of my issues. I'm trying to solve your issues that we have going on in this country. You mentioned Veterans Day. As a veteran, one of the things that I think that showed that I volunteered to serve in Iraq and do all this other stuff, I've always put service above self. When you have an opportunity to serve, like I'm as governor or as president of the United States, there's a responsibility there to look beyond whatever the petty things of the day or the moment are, and to have kind of true north there, and to know that ultimately you're the vessel to try to get people's aspirations in this country realized. But it's not about me. It's about a larger mission.
Well said. Well said by a veteran on Veterans Day. Governor DeSantis, I just want to thank you for blessing us by being here. Thank you and to your family for the sacrifice of going out in a different field of service and running for president. Some people think it's all, glory and sunlight, but it's not always that way. So we really, really thank you for the sacrifice, and thank you for becoming a temporary resident of Iowa. God bless. Governor DeSantis.